Welcome, friends, to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. I'm Debbie Georgiani, along with Jerry Usher, and we're so happy you're joining us today. As a matter of fact, we're so happy you join us every single day because you drive the show. That's what Take Two's all about. It's about taking a fresh look at ourselves, a look again, looking at the world around us, just having a great conversation and moving closer to God. Well, someone that moves us very close to God is the Blessed Mother. And the month of May is devoted completely to her. And she's our mother, and she points us to Jesus. And today we're going to talk about our relationship with the Blessed Mother. And we want to hear what your relationship is. Do you have one? What does she mean to you? How is she part of your daily life? And that's what we're going to talk about on Take Two. So, Jerry, I'm excited to hear. I know you have a very strong devotion to the Blessed Mother.
I do. Mine goes back, I would say, I think I was in my early 20s, and my mother gave me a rosary on my birthday one year. And I thought, well, if she cares enough to give me a rosary, I ought to care enough to start praying it. And so I did. And all I can say, dear friends, is if you want a better spiritual life and you're not yet devoted to Mary strongly, well, start doing so. Start with the rosary. Just buckle your seatbelt because she's got a wonderful ride she's going to take you on. There can be hills and valleys, highs and lows, good times, bad times. But as Debbie said, the one thing Mary wants, what does she say in the Bible? Do whatever he tells you. That is what she says to us. So, Debbie, I think this is a beautiful show. And those of you listening, we want your take. You could have a very unique approach to Mary, a very particular devotion or way of praying to her or seeking her intercession or help that other people aren't really aware of. So you could really help other people grow deeper in their love for Mary and their relationship with her.
Absolutely. And sometimes Mary can be a stumbling block for people journeying in the faith. They don't know really what role she can play and will play. And it's very interesting how Mary will find those people and she will seek them out and she will make herself known. And I love that. And I'm thinking of one gentleman in particular who came into the church from the Baptist religion, and he struggles with Mary and her role. And she just always seems to present herself around him with so many signs. I like to say miracles, and it's amazing how she will seek out all of her children. She's our spiritual mother. I consecrated my children to her Immaculate Heart. I have a strong devotion to Mary as well, Jerry, and the Rosary, and it's just, she's just such an amazing person who her yes changed the world, changed everything. And she's just an incredible person, and for her to be the mother of God. I mean, how awesome. I mean, she points us to Jesus. She totally moves us closer to Jesus if we allow her to. So we want to hear your takes. 1-800-585-9396. That's the number to dial. You'll talk to Matt Gabinski. He's awesome. You'll wait on hold. You can hear every part of the show so you won't miss anything. And then you can get on and share your wisdom take. And that's important because it helps all of us.
It really does. So again, that number is toll free, 1-800-585-9396. Talk about your relationship with Mary. And we use that word relationship. We want to know her. If she's the mother of Jesus and we're all members of the body of Christ, we know from the foot of the cross in Scripture, Jesus said from the cross to John, who identifies himself, by the way, not as John, but as the beloved disciple throughout his gospel, "Behold your mother, and woman, behold your son." Jesus himself is validating the relationship we are to have with Mary. And I want to hear from somebody who maybe has had difficulty with that. Debbie mentioned many converts to the faith. Scott Hahn likes to say the last obstacle for him coming into Catholicism was Mary, Mary, and Mary. And so if you've had difficulty but have found a place of peace and comfort in praying to her, and we can talk about what praying to the saints means if you want, please let us know. We also want to talk, Debbie, about balance, because I'm sure you and I have both known people And sometimes I like to say it's not possible to love Mary too much, but I think it's possible to perhaps place too much emphasis on her, or perhaps maybe just sort of keep Jesus over here, hoping that Mary will be the one who does everything for us and will lead us to Jesus. And she does all of that, but her ultimate goal is for us to get to Jesus, so we can't exempt him from the relationship. I guess that's what I'm saying.
That's going to be an interesting angle of this conversation, Jerry, because with the saints, the angels, with the Blessed Mother, there's always this idea of who are we praying to? What does intercession mean? Does it take us off focus? It's very interesting how a lot of Catholics and Christians can struggle with that. But I think it's important for us to talk about it. Just like when I even use the title Mary, Mother of God. There's a lot of fundamentalists that really struggle with that term. And so it's really important for us to really understand the catechesis behind intercession, the catechesis behind titles, and what exactly we mean when we say pray to or pray for. And it's important and to stay focused on that. And so I think this is going to be an interesting topic. There's an open phone line, so I know that if the Holy Spirit is prompting you, or if the Blessed Mother is prompting you, call in at 1-800-585-9396.
All right, we will get our first breakdown right now. And when we come back, Mary, I love it. Mary is going to be first in Ithaca, New York. And John, how appropriate. We were just talking about the beloved disciple.
Yep.
John is second in Iowa, and we've got some other calls being screened. But there's a line open for you. Who is Mary to you? What does she mean to you? How do you cultivate that relationship, always with a view to growing closer to Jesus? 1-800-585-9396. You could get somebody moving along the right path or unstuck today.
60 Seconds with Father Mitch Pacwa.
There's a constant spreading of indifference to religion. See that attitude, well, you've got your religion and I have mine, or I have no religion, but that's all up to you. It's all a personal choice. It doesn't matter. If you go to hell and fry, it doesn't matter. Yes, it does. And it matters to me if I do. Also, secularism. Well, we'll just keep religion out of it. That was never the intention of the founders of these United States. Don't buy that bologna sausage. The founders of this country were thoroughly religious. And they intended this to be a very religious country. And Thomas Jefferson, one of the people they sometimes say was irreligious. Thomas Jefferson said, this government cannot work if all we have are the laws. If we don't have religion to help people keep a sense of why they should keep the laws, it'll fail.
The people you know and trust are on EWTN.
Hello, this is Father John Paul Mary.
This is Debbie Georgiani, co-host of Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
My friends, this is Bishop Kevin Vann of the Diocese of Orange. I want to thank you very much for listening to the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
We're so glad you joined us on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. We're talking about the Blessed Mother today. May is the month of Mary. Maybe you went to Catholic school and you had the May crownings. I know I used to love them. I absolutely love them. We used to pick to see who was going to get to crown Mary, and it was just an amazing time to honor our Blessed Mother. Maybe you have
Did you get to do it?
I knew you were going to ask me that. I knew it. Okay, I never did. I was on the side. They used to have three of us go up, and then one would get on the step stool and crown Mary, and the other two would stand there. It was so bad because it was like the runners up in a, you know how beauty pageant? It's like, who cares if you don't get to crown Mary? So you would stand there and you'd have to look lovingly at the person who got to do it. And all along you're thinking to yourself, I wanted to do that, because it's a big honor. It's a real big honor. No, I never got to crown Mary, but I was an assistant.
Beautiful.
Thanks.
Well, why don't we hear from what our listeners have to say on who is Mary to you? Our number is 800-585-9396. 9396. You could change someone's perspective and their whole spiritual life with your take. So as promised, and how beautiful, we're going to start with Mary, listening to EWTN Radio on the Station of the Cross in Ithaca, New York. Hi, Mary. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Yes, hello. I want to share when I have 4 children, and they went to grammar school, Catholic school. But then we have a public high school, and the priest had a meeting to warn us and told us, oh, there's drugs, alcohol, and sex at the high school. And I got so scared. I come home, and I had to look for my rosary. But I made a deal with the Blessed Mother, and I said, dear Mom, if I say a rosary every day, I promise I won't go to bed unless I say my rosary, no matter where I am. But I said, you got to keep my children close to your son. I said, you could always be with them. I can't. I don't always say the right thing or do the right thing, but you can do miracles. So I made this deal, but I never heard her end of the deal. And you don't know what she did to me. You know, it's important to know Jesus, you know, what he said, where he went, what he did. But nobody knows him like his mother. Now, 9 months in her womb, 30 years in the home, and then she was with him the 3 years preaching, teaching, and dying and rising. So you don't know what she did to me. If you really want to know Jesus, you got to go to his mother, because through the rosary with Mary and meditating on the beautiful mysteries, she brought me so close to Jesus. You know, like I said, you got to know where he went with, but she introduced me to him as a person. Through her rosary, I could feel his kindness, his goodness, his gentleness. I could feel him like a real person. And she did that, and if you really want to know Jesus, you got to go to his mother.
Mary, you have nailed it. I'm telling you. And this is something that a lot of, I think even a lot of Catholics don't spend enough time reflecting on. And I really believe, I'm sorry to say, a lot of non-Catholic Christians, just simply because it's not a part of their theology in their churches often. But, you know, Mary and Debbie, Mary, the Virgin Mary, was more than just a conduit. She wasn't just this piece of pipe that God said, okay, Jesus, now go down through that piece of pipe and come out, and then you're on earth, and then Mary will just kind of drift off into her life and not be a part. No, I mean, this is the most intimate of all relationships. Debbie, you know that. You're a mother. Mary, you're a mother. You talked about that. The relationship between a mother and a child, and it's one obviously that I'll never know, never ends. And that heartfelt attachment and that intimacy is always there. And so, yes, Debbie, Mary is so right. The Virgin Mary was just, I mean, Jesus, Joseph too played a part in this, but they had to form him in his human nature, and he had to learn, and they had to see him grow and mature. The Bible talks about this. So there's so much more to her role in Jesus' life than just simply being a womb that he spent 9 months in. As Mary's made that point beautifully, I think.
Beautiful, Mary. I agree. You made so many points. First of all, a little comical thing. Mary, you realize you're the only one that could make a deal with the Blessed Mother since you're named Mary, right? The rest of us don't have that privilege. No, I'm just teasing. But Mary, you're so lucky. You have Mary's name, and so you felt close to her, and you went to her. And one thing that struck out something you said that really struck me deeply was when you said, Mary, you can always be with my children, and I can't. And that's so true. Our children go off into the world. They're in school. They're many hours of the day away from us. But Mary is their spiritual mom and can be with them always. And I really think the relationship that you cultivated with Mary was beautiful and very profound and has obviously lasting effects with your children. Mary, awesome. Just absolutely awesome. So many things you've said are so beautiful, and you're so right. If you want to know the child, go to their mother. And the mother knows the child intimately. And because really, when you think about it, it's amazing. the whole gestation period of when a child is developing, the mom and the child is so intimately connected. And so you're right, Mary. Awesome, great take, Marion. I love your name, and you have a beautiful, beautiful, blessed day.
Thank you, Mary. Appreciate that. And we're going to go to John next, as promised, in Burlington, Iowa. John has got EWTN radio, I presume, on Iowa Catholic Radio. John, welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you guys?
Better
Doing well.
now that you called.
Thank you.
All right. Hey, I'm a convert for 57 years. I started saying the rosary 21 years ago, and I wouldn't miss a day. And I had a stroke about 10 years ago, and I was a big-time smoker, a chain smoker, and I had this stroke. I said goodbye to my wife. I said goodbye to my dog, and my kids all live out of town. But anyway, I was in the ambulance, and the guy was sitting beside me with paddles, and another guy was taking my blood pressure and everything, and I knew I was dying. But I wanted a cigarette, and I said, "Can I have a cigarette?" And he said, "John, you can't smoke in an ambulance, you know." I said, "Well, then pull over. Let me have a cigarette. I'm dying." And they said, "We can't do that, John. We got to get you to this hospital." So I started saying Hail Marys every time I wanted a cigarette. And I don't know how many I said on the way to the hospital, but I was up there, I guess, close to 2 weeks. And when I got out, I never wanted to smoke again. All I said was, every time I wanted one, I just said a Hail Mary. But I've had a devotion to her for 21 years, and I love my spiritual mother. And that's my story.
Wow. John, you have lived to tell about it, too, and you lived quite a while after that to tell about it, and she and her son obviously have a lot more work, blessed work for you to do here on this earth. But what a beautiful story. And John, your conversion, I don't know, were you, did you have any difficulty with Mary when you first became Catholic?
Not at all. Not at all.
Okay.
No, it's, I kind of fell in love with the church and her and everything, But it's, another thing, I make little wooden crosses because my hands are numb and I can't do a lot. But I have handed out in this town like 936 crosses.
Wow.
So far, little wooden crosses that I make. But it's all due to Mary. She just brings you right to Jesus and makes you closer to your church. And I can't say enough about my spiritual mother.
Mm-hmm. Nor can we, John, nor can we. Thank you. You have blessed our day today abundantly, and I love how you just see her as your spiritual mother. Was it Maximilian Kolbe? St. Maximilian Kolbe called her Mama. And I've developed that practice as well. When I have just a moment of sudden need, I say, Mama, help me. And Debbie, sometimes we think that because sins are bad and we do sinful things and so forth, we think that because we have that God is maybe just waiting for an opportunity to punish us or what have you. We have to stop. We have to turn that around and think, wait a minute. No, God is a father. He is always looking to protect us
and care
and
for
so
us. Yeah.
in times of temptation, when I think, oh no, I know I'm going to fall in this situation. I've just developed this pattern, this habit of saying, angels, minister to me. Mary, please help me right now. And they want to help us, not see us hurt and damaged, so just like any parents would. So, yeah, it's beautiful when we can see Mary as our mother.
It is. And I just love the way John described his relationship with Mary. So thanks, John. That really inspires us and helps us to understand it. And you've been saying the rosary for 21 years? I mean, it's amazing. And that is so beautiful when especially when a man prays the rosary. I think it is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I really do. So, okay, we're going to move along to, thanks, John, again, so very much for your take on this. We're going to move to Teresa listening to EWTN Radio in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on Holy Spirit Radio. Hi, Teresa. Welcome to Take Two.
Hi, how are you?
Doing well. Good. Now that you called, we're so happy you joined us.
I was wondering, what does it mean to consecrate your children to Mary, and how do you do that?
Well, okay, I can go. I guess I can go first. There's many sites on. You can actually, you just made me think of something. I'm going to post after the show, if we can. If Jeff Burson is listening right now, can you post a couple things? One is the Memorare. I think that is a very important prayer to the Blessed Mother. That's actually my favorite prayer. Also, the resource, Behold Your Mother by Tim Staples. I think that is an awesome book. And then there is also a good site to look at for consecration and what it means to consecrate yourself or your children to the Immaculate Heart of Mary or to Mary. And I guess the best way I would describe it is that it's a total, I think one of the popes said it. In fact, let me check. Pope Pius the 12th. Yeah, it's a total gift of yourself for eternity to Mary or to the Immaculate Heart, and it is a act of the will to align yourself to her heart, just like the consecration to the Sacred Heart of Jesus, and it's for eternity. It's basically, I guess the best way to describe it is, it's a giving over, if you will, or a connection to a deeper element of Mary, and it's a total commitment. I don't want to use vow or pledge or anything like that. It's a commitment, a deep, eternal commitment. Is that the best way to describe dedication? Thank you, Jerry.
Yeah, it's like dedicating. We see it even in Luke chapter 2 when Mary took Jesus to the temple, and Simeon blessed them and said to Mary, "Your child is destined to cause the fall and rise of many in Israel, to be a sign that we've spoken against. Your heart will also be pierced by a sword." But they took Jesus to the temple to be dedicated, if you will. And so, Teresa, in Philadelphia, it's really, you're not abandoning your role or responsibilities for your kids. What you're doing is you're bringing in extra help.
Right.
And it's incredible help, because when you consecrate your children to Jesus or to Mary, preferably to Jesus through Mary, that's like saying to them, I want you to have a special role in me helping raise my kids and provide all the protection that you possibly can for my children throughout their entire lives. And I would just say any parent who hasn't done that or isn't planning to do that should really rethink that. So, Teresa, I don't know in Philadelphia if that's of any help to you or not.
Yes, I just didn't know if there was a formal process one needed to go about.
Well, it's not necessarily a formal process, but there's suggested prayers and continuing prayers for consecration. So I'll post a couple sites that I have gone to several times if you would like to take a look at those, and maybe they might help. Is that good? Oh, you're welcome. Absolutely.
Yeah, it can be something formal. There are many, many prayers that have been written for that. It doesn't have to be. God can work in any situation. And I would say praying over your children and just inviting the Holy Spirit to come and just say, Jesus and Mary, I consecrate these children to you for all eternity. Make sure that your intention is that you want them, obviously, this is why you do it, is you want them to get to heaven, but to also have a little less bumpy time here in this life as well. So, Teresa, I hope that helps you out. Thank you so much for joining us from the City of Brotherly Love. We appreciate that. And those of you on hold, we are going to get to all of you. Typically, we do that in the order that you called. So we've got many, many more calls to get to right after the break. The number is 1-800-585-9396.
And Jerry, I just want everybody to please make sure to check back later this afternoon to take2show.com, and we'll post those resources, because Behold Your Mother, Tim Staples, is phenomenal. It's one of my favorite books. And I really think that would be very helpful. And also consecration sites where people can check them out and figure out what's works for them. I remember when my children were baptized, Jerry, the deacon that baptized both my children laid the baby on the altar and consecrated the baby to Jesus. Just held the baby up, and it was really beautiful. So I think you're right. There's formal ways. There's also just very just organic ways of consecrating yourself to the Twin Hearts, and it's really beautiful. And so maybe this is why the conversation is happening on Take Two, so we can all explore that and see if that is something we want to do for our lives, our Christian life. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
From EWTN News Nightly in Washington, D.C., I'm Brian Patrick. Here's your EWTN News Link. An American service member is killed in Iraq. The military isn't releasing a name, but we're told the victim was an advisor to Kurdish Peshmerga forces. The U.S. responds by dropping more than 20 bombs. Texas Senator Ted Cruz says he plans to continue his campaign even if he loses Indiana today. He spent most of the past 2 weeks campaigning there. The latest polls show Donald Trump leading in the Hoosier state going into today's GOP primary. Nearly all of Detroit's public schools are closed again today. About 45,000 students are impacted by the teachers' sick-out. Now on its second day, the district says it can't afford to pay some teachers in July and August. And Pope Francis decries motionless or mummified Christians in his morning homily. The Holy Father says we need to examine if we're standing still on the path towards God. I'm Brian Patrick with your EWTN News Link. Join us tonight for EWTN News Nightly.
I'm Raymond Arroyo with Mother Angelica, A Remarkable Life. When she was here at Sancta Clara at this monastery in Canton, Ohio, Sister Angelica had a nickname in the cloister. It was Miss Fix-It. She was the person they turned to whenever the appliances went on the fritz, or in one instance, the leaky basement began to flood. Mother Angelica was called in to fix it. She assembled a crew of fellows from the old neighborhood, became foreman of the project, and it would be the first of many projects this nun would preside over throughout her life. Stay with EWTN as we continue to celebrate the life and legacy of Mother Angelica.
We're going right back to your calls on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Who is Mary to you? The Virgin Mary, the mother of Jesus. The church views her as the mother of God, and that is simply, that title is a defense of Jesus. It's not so much focused on Mary when you think about it, because at the time the church was battling heresies that said Jesus was only divine and not human, or only human and not divine. And so the church defined that he was both fully God and fully man. Therefore, if he is fully God in the flesh, Mary is the mother of God. She's not just the mother of his human nature. So again, keep in mind when you hear titles and things like this about Mary, and some people challenge you on that, there's a very good reason why the Catholic Church does that. Okay, thanks for holding. Sandy, you're up next, listening to EWTN Radio on Denver Catholic Radio in Denver. Hi, Sandy. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I wanted to kind of give a little bit about my journey to Mary. I'm 54, and I've only in these last few years, I was raised Catholic, but only in these last few years have I actually been praying the rosary. And the reason why was because my mother, even though she was Catholic, she married a Protestant who was not into Mary. And then we moved to Alabama, where I was constantly barraged with Mary is bad, basically. And so I kind of avoided her and really didn't see that there was really any need or purpose for her in my Christian faith. Then when I went to college, I went to University of Steubenville, and I noticed the students who were growing the deepest and the quickest in their relationship and their intimacy with Jesus were those who had a devotion to Mary. And I thought that was very interesting, but I was not willing to go there because I was still very, I have a relationship with Jesus. Why would I want to pray to Mary? Because she'll just take time away from Jesus. I have such a limited amount of time. I don't want to waste it with her. Plus, even though my mother was a wonderful person, she was not a very nurturing person. So I was kind of anti-woman a little bit too. Well, then I ended up joining a Protestant ministry, a really, really big one. I don't want to mention the name or anything. And I met the leader of this ministry, and his house had a whole bunch of statues of Mary in it, a whole bunch, more than any Catholic I've ever met. And so I asked him about this, and he says, well, in my travels, in my last 50 years of doing ministry, I've met many wonderful people. He says, all the holiest people I've ever met have all been Catholics with a devotion to Mary. And he says, so because of that, I've come to realize that there really is something here, and she is our mother. And so even with hearing that, I was like, wow, okay, but I still wasn't willing to do anything about it. But I kept, and then John Paul II, I'm like, whoa, he had a devotion. Padre Pio, he had a devotion. All these people. And then we get EWTN radio here in Denver, and Janet Bankovich won't shut her mouth. And she keeps talking about Mary. I felt like I was being harassed. So finally one day, I was like, I would turn her off. I'd be like, oh, God. And so finally I said to the Lord, okay, Lord, it just seems like you're surrounding me with all this stuff.
Right.
If there really is something to this Mary, and if I can grow closer to you, because I feel like I know you, and we're going along fine, I'll just try it for a while. So I started praying the rosary, the scriptural rosary. And it's amazing. I've been in ministry for 30 years. And these last 3 years, I have grown more intimately and more deeply with Jesus than I ever have in those last 30 years.
And that was all because of Mary, Sandy, because she found you. Just like you said, Johnette Bankovic was talking about it. You had statues when you went into that person's house all around you. Mary will find you because she does want to be that nurturing mother for all of us. We may not have the most perfect moms here on earth, but she's our perfect mom in heaven. And she does care about us, and all she wants us to do is to grow in holiness and to be one day united with her son the way she is. And that's what's the beauty of Mary. And you're so right. You listen to Father Donald Calloway's talks, and that's exactly what he talks about. If you want to grow spiritually really close to Jesus, if you really want to just catapult your faith walk, bring Mary along. Let her be your spiritual mom. Sandy, awesome. That's a great take today. I'm so glad that you shared it, because I'm sure there was so many people listening right now that are asking the same thing about, what role is Mary going to play in my life, or is she going to distract me? It's pretty awesome that you shared that, Jerry.
Well, I was just wondering, Sandy, if you could just share very briefly what your friends, family think now, as you've added this component of Marian spirituality to your life. If that has brought any consternation on their part, or maybe they've said, "Hey, it's doing amazing things in Sandy's life. Perhaps I should look into that." Have there been any results from your adopting Mary more as your spiritual mother?
Well, I don't live in Alabama. I have no accent. I don't live in Alabama right now, so I'm not really around the Protestant members of my family anymore. But I can say that my whole family, like I said, we were raised without the rosary. We were raised with all of this stuff. But now my sisters, my mother, everybody's starting to pray the rosary together, and we have some nieces and nephews who are meth addicts, some addictions like that. Now they're praying the rosary, and their lives are starting to turn around. So I think eventually the non-Catholic relatives are going to go, whoa, what happened to that Catholic side of the family? What's going on over there? But I can just testify for my own self with my own friends that I can tell them, wow, this, I hate to use it like it's a magic wand, but this really works.
Sandy,
I really honestly thought she would take me away from Christ, and she has not. She's brought me closer.
Funny how that is, huh? And Sandy, God bless you. Thank you for your call. We will let you go on that because Bill has been holding a long time in San Diego, and we got several other calls. But pray for us. Next time you pray your rosary, Sandy, if you'd think of Take Two with Jerry and Debbie and all of our listeners, we'd appreciate that. And we promise that we will do the same thing for you. I know Debbie and I both pray the rosary every day. And so thank you, Sandy, for that call. Bill, afford me just one more quick second here because we had the One Faith experience a week and a half ago in St. Louis. And Debbie, I don't remember if you met him, but a young gentleman named Isaac from Salt Lake City. He went in to St. Louis from Salt Lake City for the event. And, oh gosh, maybe I don't know if I should say this or not. He's had some very, very big problems, some drugs and stuff like that. And he said he had been 6 months, he was very open about it, 6 months clean, and it was because of devotion to Mary, and he was just so on fire for Jesus and in love with Mary. And I thought, this is what she can do. No matter what problem, dear listeners, you have, no matter what you're going through, go to Mary, because what would she ask Jesus for that he wouldn't do for her? She would never ask him for anything that wasn't in accord with his will, because their wills are, of course, on earth they were united, but in heaven they are very perfectly united. We call it the two hearts, or the twin hearts. So please entrust your cares to Mary, and she will see that her son tends to them very beautifully. All right, Bill.
Jerry, real quickly, and to your point, I just want to say one quick thing. Bill, you're definitely getting the Patience Award, just so you know. But real quickly, going back to consecration, when Teresa was asking about consecration, that's exactly what it is. It's the awareness that Mary is so intimately connected to Jesus. It's that constant awareness, and that's what I was looking for with the term or the word consecration. It's knowing that she's active in our life, in our spiritual life, on a day-to-day, moment-to-moment basis. That's what really consecration is. Okay, sorry about that. Bill, you got the award in San Diego, listening to EWTN Radio online. Hi, Bill.
Hi, good morning. I think Sandy set my question up really well because I was just thinking about the fact that Jesus led a perfect life as a man on earth, and that he kept the Ten Commandments perfectly, unlike us, and that he followed the commandment, honor thy father and thy mother, Mary and Joseph, perfectly, so that his attitude in heaven is still one of keeping the commandment and honoring his mother, Mary. I think the fact that this is a relationship, a family relationship that we're talking about. But my original idea was that for many Protestants, they're worried that we're worshiping Mary. And my question is that many Protestants will say, well, I don't need to think about Mary. I can still go to heaven by worshiping Jesus. So is that true? Is that logically true? I can see how your spiritual life is enhanced by beholding the mother Mary, but can a person still go to heaven if they don't look at her that closely? Does that make any sense?
Sure, Bill. A couple things I'll say, and Debbie's been involved in religious education, so she can probably speak to this a lot better than I can, but the church has certain Marian doctrines and dogmas that in order to be fully Catholic, if I can put it that way, we are required to believe, and that's just simply they're the core teachings of the church. This doesn't necessarily touch upon spirituality or devotion. It's just simply what does the church teach about Mary, and then as Catholics we have to receive that as coming from God through the church. So there are certain doctrines and dogmas that we have to believe. As far as a devotion to Mary, Debbie, I would say one does not necessarily have to have a strong, active, vibrant, robust devotion to Mary to go to Jesus. I would think that eventually, if someone really cultivates a deep relationship with Jesus, he's going to bring his mother into the relationship at some point. I don't know why anybody would not want to have a strong relationship with Mary. But Debbie, like I said, you've taught religious ed, so I don't know if you've addressed this before.
Oh yeah. We've had a lot of families that would come and bring their children for religious education, and one of the parents is. They're another denomination, a Christian denomination, and that Mary would always be that conversation that we would have to have on what is our beliefs. And I'm glad you brought up the Marian dogmas, Jerry, about what we are. It's a non-negotiable for Catholics that we are to believe in the Assumption and Immaculate Conception and her perpetual virginity and her divine motherhood. And so that's for us as Catholics. For Christians, Bill, it's, Mary is really a stumbling block to some degree, because it goes back to what Sandy was saying. It's this idea that somehow she's going to detract from the attention that non-denominational Christians feel about Jesus. That if anything detracts, if anything pulls you away from that, then that can't be what God would want. Whereas we as Catholics, we believe, like I like to call it, the full spiritual toolbox. We believe in all the angels and the saints and the sacraments and Mary and everything else all pushes us right towards that same center focus. So I really think there is a separation on how we view getting to heaven, and with our Christian brothers and sisters, there is a different focus. The thing about it is most of the time, I will tell you that when our Christian brothers and sisters do open that door to Mary, or the saints, or the angels, they tend to lean very closely or come into the Catholic Church. So I think I don't know necessarily if it's a all or nothing kind of conversation to have with our Christian brothers and sisters. I would just, if it were me, I wouldn't even tackle that topic of saying, is it possible to get to heaven not being devoted to Mary? What I would just constantly introduce is the idea of Mary, and let it just manifest itself, let it just unfold. So I think I've always used to kind of position my discussion with my Christian brothers and sisters a little differently. Bill, I don't know if that makes any sense. I'm trying to dance around it a little bit, but maybe I could hear your comment, and then it'll help me better.
It makes total sense to me, what you're saying, and out of respect for Mary and the Marian dogmas, I understand, I think, what you're trying to say here. I think we'll just have to leave it up to the mercy of Christ. But this whole conversation has stimulated me to, I see Jesus on the cross saying to St. John, "Behold your mother," and to his mother, "Behold your son." And many Protestants see that as just the one singular thing between the three people there, whereas the Church sees that commandment from Christ, meaning that we're all invited to behold our mother, and that she's invited to behold us as her son. And I guess I'm gravitating towards the Holy Family. Some of us here in America have damaged families, which are not functioning in the 21st century or the 20th century the way families used to in terms of closeness. Right. And I take a solace in seeing that Mary must have packed a lunch for Jesus and Joseph when they walked to the construction site for doing carpentry work. Someone said that they had a construction site near Nazareth that they worked on, and that she must have done the lunch for them every day. That sort of family relationship. So that's the avenue I like to take, is that she is his mother. And being the Queen Mother, I'm a student of history. I know Queen Mothers throughout history have always had a great influence on the king. And so that's the context in which I see it. You can be hyper devoted, I think. But I think the balance comes in seeing it as a family relationship between Mary, Joseph, and Jesus. What do you think?
Well, I'll tell you what, Bill, you hit something really important there, because Debbie and I were part of a pilgrimage to the Holy Land just a few months ago, and we went to the home of the Holy Family while we were there, and it was described to us, and you were really getting right at it. They had, of course, no amenities. They lived literally in a cave. They might have been able to build a fire to stay warm, but other than that, the cave kind of controlled the climate during the winter and the summer months and so forth. But it was described by our guide Steve Ray that, yeah, Mary would be the first one up in the morning, very early, before Jesus and Joseph. She would start the fire. She would, like you said, prepare them for lunch. They had about an hour walk, approximately, it's estimated, each way to and from their work during the day. And as they were gone, Mary would traipse to the well a couple times a day, barefooted along the paths that, as they say, wild animals walked along as well, and she would come home with the water, and she'd be kind of waiting when they would come up over the hill on the way home and have dinner for them, and she'd be the last one to bed because she wanted to make sure her two men and her family got a good night's sleep. So she's really, really a warrior, very solicitous, and this is the kind of thing that we can look at and see that Mary does have our interests in mind as well. Just one other real quick thing, Bill, you mentioned, and we talked about it earlier in the show. Debbie, I've heard it said that when Jesus says from the cross, behold your son, behold your mother, to St. John, and then it says, and from that moment on, John took her into his home. But I've heard that the actual word behind that, and I may be off on this, but I've heard it actually in the original language says he took her into his own. In other words, he took her into his life, not just into a dwelling that they shared, a house, a home, but that John took her into himself. And so I need to do a little bit more study on that, but I've heard that mentioned before. So anyway, Deb, I don't know if you have anything. Bill, thanks for the call. We got to try and get to a couple more calls here if we can.
Bill, it was a great call. And don't forget, Call to Communion with Dr. David Anders at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. That's a great, great show to address so many of these topics that everybody is raising. And so I would encourage all of our listeners to listen to Call to Communion with Dr. David Anders. Okay, we've got so many calls coming in. They're coming in so fast. So we're going to go to Doug listening to EWTN radio in Minnesota on Sirius XM 130. Hi, Doug. Welcome to Take Two.
Hello. Yes. I heard the expression, the way is narrow. It doesn't mean that it's hard to understand. It's just hard to follow. And to me, it's as simple as if we are created to praise God, to worship God. That's what the angels do. That's what all of his creation does. The most that a human ever loved God was his mother. And anybody would pretty much, buy that right offhand. A mother's love for a child, there is none greater. The only complication is if I'm asking for a woman to share her heart with me, is that going to somehow violate my masculinity? And I just want to give two easy little pictures for people to try to remember how that works. God's grace, his spirit, doesn't have a gender. And think of it as coming through a prism. And out of the prism, there's two different colors. There's male and female. That prism is humankind, mankind. It comes out in two colors, male and female. And so when this grace, this love of a woman's heart comes through the prism of mankind, it doesn't violate my masculinity. Another simple little picture I want to leave with people is a sword and a sheath. Mary, they say that Mary's mantle covers us. And usually the man, especially in nature, it's the male that has to do the fighting, the defending of the home. And think of the male as the sword and Mary as that mantle, that sheath, which protects the sword. So it's not hard to understand, it's just hard to follow. We sin more, not from lack of understanding, we sin from lack of will. So if the understanding is that simple, like a prism coming through, causing two lights, male and female, and a sword being protected by a sheath. And just one last thing, just try it. I call Mary my turbocharger. Sure, your car's going to get there if you don't have a turbo, but wouldn't it be much more thrilling to know where the turbo switch is? She inflames your heart with the greatest human love ever for God.
Yeah, and Doug, I think it was St. Louis de Montfort who said Mary is the surest way to Jesus. And so people could look that up, see if I'm accurate about that. It was St. Louis de Montfort or another great saint who promoted devotion to Mary. But I'm reminded of Debbie and I have a good friend, Adam Bly, who's a religious demonologist, and he has helped out. He actually trains priests to do exorcisms. And he said there have been times he's participated in exorcisms when things were not going real well, and all of a sudden the demons got frightened and were ready to leave, and I think the priest or somebody asked them what changed or whatever, and they said, that woman is here. So Jesus has given authority to Mary. This is not of Mary. It's like the moon. People talk about the light of the moon. The moon gives no light. Keep that in mind. But it lights up the night. Why is that? It's because the sun is shining on the moon, and then it gives off light, but it's not its own light. That's Mary. That's each one of us. If we are the light in the world, it is the light of Christ, and Mary is preeminent in doing that. Debbie?
Well said. Well said. Charles and Ron and the others, you guys are awesome for calling in. Please continue the conversation going on Facebook, EWTN Catholic Radio Facebook. Jerry, I think we're out of time. This went so fast. I think Mary just made it go really, really fast.
Yeah, I am very, very guilty of bringing callers onto the show and then having to jump in and interrupt them. It's very rude sometimes. I hate to not get anybody on the show. So like you said, Ron, thanks for your call from Los Angeles, and Charles in Akron, Ohio. Please call Take Two with Jerry another time. And Debbie, what's your takeaway on the show today?
I love our mother. She is amazing, and she will do everything to take care of us and to help us grow in holiness and to be united with her Son. She will do everything and anything that she can. And that's my takeaway, is that why wouldn't people like who I think Doug said, give it a try. Why wouldn't you give it a try? Because she'll take you places you never could dream of. Jerry?
Well, my takeaway, I'm going to let Sharon on EWTN Catholic Radio Facebook page speak for me. She says on our Facebook page, Mary is our advocate before the Lord. She always brings us to Jesus. She prays for us unceasingly. She loves us dearly. And she goes on to talk about what we talked about on the show, that Jesus gave Mary to us from the cross. So great. Debbie, our listeners are fantastic. Once again, the takes on this show just literally blow me away, and I know they do you as well.
Absolutely. I learn something new every single day. Thank you so very much. Tomorrow's show is how do you love and serve the Lord after Mass, right after Mass. That's what we're going to be talking about. Ooh, what happens after you leave the church building? So it's going to be very interesting. I think it's going to be another great conversation, Jerry. What do you think?
I agree. The closing words at Mass, let us go in peace to love and serve the Lord. That means bring others to Him. That means we are Eucharistic people. Do we go out and evangelize? So we want to hear how you do that tomorrow on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. But until then, Debbie,
have a beautiful and blessed day. See you tomorrow.
God bless.